think, when I hear people, and I say it myself, like, oh, this is the, if you got in, you're already part of the 1% of people who know about the amazing products that Richard's designed with fundamentals. And this is an amazing opportunity, all that. Like, and I truly believe it as well, just like you. It just always makes me think too, for the people who this keeps happening to cycle after cycle, is it, do people just trade it away? Do they just can't wait? Is it just truly most people's first cycle? How do you, if crypto's so good, like why is everyone rich yet? Like why has it happened for everyone yet?
This is a really good question. And to kind of piggyback on kind of some of where this question is coming from, I think from your end, I saw a video today as well from a very small YouTuber who put out a video saying why I'm done with cryptocurrency. And, the guy was saying how it's highly volatile. Only the 1%, the insiders really make money. And it's too risky. It's not for me. I'm out. And I think a lot of this boils down to the fact that people are their own worst enemy. And looking back at the previous cycle in the previous 2021 bull market, I was my own worst enemy. I came into this market with more or less a plan, and it was unrefined in regards to what to look out for. But I actually had a pretty good idea of some of the things to look out for when it comes to taking profits. But looking back at some of the major areas in which I failed when I allowed my emotions to overtake my plans, whether that was overtrading, using too high leverage, not taking profits due to euphoria and not sticking to my previously held plan. Really, it was all a bunch of very, very human errors that led me to not find financial freedom in the first cycle for me. And I think that's a lot of what I went through is what most people go through, because I made every mistake in the book. I dabbled in every ecosystem. I really didn't know what it was like to look, what it took to find a winner, really. And then even if you were lucky enough to find that winner, what it took to really capitalize on those gains. And so, I mentioned this to you previously when we were talking. I am working on a course. It's not ready yet. I'll set them in the near future, but I do want to share some of the major takeaways that I want to incorporate into that course and share that with you guys. So I came to kind of three major understandings that I think if I would have understood and listened to and actually applied these understandings during the last cycle, I would have been in a far better financial place than I am currently. And the first kind of major rule I came to understand is you really got to understand the market cycle. Part of what attracts people to the space in the first place is the fact that we hear, oh, Bitcoin went from 3K to 17, Bitcoin went from whatever 5 to 69K. These markets, one of the reasons why I think they're actually not as risky as a lot of people think, and a lot of people give these markets credit for, is because they're actually very semi-predictable on a macro scale, where we have these macro pump and dumps, where the shape of the pump and the shape of the dump is shaped by that day's kind of macroeconomic environment, right? If there's quantitative easing period, quantitative tightening period, that's going to kind of shape our peaks and our valleys. But we ultimately exist in this pump and dump cycle that is kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? That's kind of driven by the market's largest driving force, which is currently Bitcoin and the Bitcoin halvings. For those of you who don't know, every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoin being produced gets cut in half on a very predictable fashion, which leads to a supply shock, which leads to a euphoric period that's ultimately unsustainable, because any period of euphoria is unsustainable, which leads to an inevitable correction because markets exist in extremes. We go from the euphoric extreme to the depressive extreme, and we do this on kind of a 4-year schedule. And so it's very important to understand that, and also look out for telltale signs that really are repeatable, that you can look for in the future, to not understand perfectly when there's a top or a bottom, but roughly that can be very helpful. If you can understand the signs for knowing when we could roughly be close to a top and roughly be close to a bottom, that is extremely helpful. And I could go on to share some of those signs. But just one thing right off the bat, you could look at sentiment. There's the Bitcoin. I forget if it's the exact name, sentiment tracker, but it's a free thing. Whenever we've been in the overbought period, it's always signaled a cycle or local top. If Coinbase goes public, a major event like that could also be a sign of a psychological top. If we lose parabolic structure, there's plenty of things to look out for. So ultimately, and on the charts, I'll share later. I'll share some more tangible things. But my point is, understand the market cycle, understand a couple tangible things you could look out for to try and understand roughly when we could be close to a top, could be close to a bottom. And if you incorporate that into a take profit accumulation strategy where, hey, you buy, major dips and you sell major highs, and you have some kind of understanding of what to look out for that defines highs and lows, then you're probably going to do fine. So I think if a lot of people try and get a better understanding of what constitutes these highs and lows, and understanding the cycle and implementing it and following it, because it's one thing to understand it. I had in mind coming into this 2021 cycle, one very, very specific signal that I told myself, if this happens, I'm going to stick to my guns, I'm going to sell. It happened. And what did I do? I did not stick to my guns. I didn't sell because everyone was saying, we're going to 200K, we're going to 300K. And we were at 64, 65. Saying, I was like, we're not nearly close enough. Why am I selling now? Everyone and their mother is saying we're going to the moon. And so I let my emotions get the better of me. And I listened to my euphoria instead of to my goddamn plan, which if I would have listened to, again, would have done much better. So that's kind of first thing. Second most important thing is, when it comes to investing, man, everyone, there's no perfect approach for everyone, because a lot of people are coming into the space with a little bit of money. And if you're young and you don't have that much to invest, perhaps it might be sensible to take on what's conventionally understood to be perhaps more risk, although I would go on to argue that really no one understands risk truly. But that's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down. Sure. But if maybe if you're rich, you're not interested in the next 10. If you're a millionaire, if you have $3 million in the bank or $3 million in assets, maybe you're not interested in the next 10,000x. Maybe you're okay with a 2x, a 5x, a 10x. Well, then you might invest differently. But for those interested in outperforming the market, for those interested in financial freedom, you really got to invest in a different way than the average investor invests. Because if you do what the average person gets, you're going to get the returns the average person gets, which is average market returns. Again, if you're already a rich multimillionaire, you might be okay with that. But if you're not there, you got to act differently, meaning you got to get in early at a good valuation into something that's addressing a large total addressable market and at a good valuation. And there's a lot more to that, but essentially, rule number 2, if you want to outperform the market, you really got to get into something early at a good valuation with solid fundamentals. If you're watching, say, Bitcoin Crypto, for example, and he's talking about the same 3 coins every day, XRP, Cardano, whatever, then those cryptocurrencies are probably not going to outperform the market, because Bitcoin Crypto is the largest, cryptocurrency YouTuber. Almost by definition, what he's making the most amount of content about is what most people are paying attention to, and therefore, by definition, is the average, market return thing. And so, if you want to outperform that, you really got to invest differently. And then number 3, again, have that take profit strategy. And again, that's kind of a part of understanding the market cycle. But there really are a few things that you need to look out for. And again, perhaps later on I can share some of those more tangible things on the chart. But you really got to have a take profit strategy, because if you don't, you're left in this position where you have to hold the bag 80, 90% down. You got to hold it for 1 or 2 or 3 years. And for some people, if you're okay with that, great. But I think for a lot of people, it's very helpful to understand, have some conception of what a market cycle is, have some conception of what it takes to outperform the market, and have some conception about when it's reasonable to take profits. I think all those 3 things, understanding them and implementing them, I know this is an extremely long-winded answer, is something that's likely to help, hopefully, me and many others.